Hi, welcome to Defcon3. I'm KT McFarland. Something's going on in Russia. Nobody can quite figure it out. On one hand, President Putin has tried to clamp down on free speech. He has shut down some of the opposition newspapers. He has closed some of the political opposition political offices. And at the same time, he's released out of jail one of his major opposition figures, Khodorkovsky, a wealthy oil natural gas magnate who Putin's had in jail for years. And just this week, he's released the remaining members of the punk rock band Pussy Riot. So what's going on? Joining us to explain it all is Colonel Cedric Leighton, former Deputy Director of the National Security Agency and expert on Russia. So is President Putin having a little bit of a schizophrenic attack, or what's really going on behind the scenes?
Well, KT, I think what he's really trying to do is burnish his image for the Sochi Olympics, which, of course, are going to be held in just a few months in Russia. And it's going to be a very important thing for him to try to convince the rest of the world that Russia is, if not a paradise, at least a normal member of the community of nations. It kind of brings back memories of 1936, not that I personally have any of those, but that was the Olympics when Hitler, of course, advertised the National Socialist efforts in Germany in the Berlin Olympics of that year. So the parallels are kind of interesting.
So what do we think is going to happen? Is Putin going to allow political opposition to flourish now, or is this just a sort of one or two symbols and same old, continuing on with crushing any political opposition?
It's going to be window dressing, and what he's going to do is he's going to release a few token opposition figures, especially ones that are famous, such as Pussy Riot and also Mikhail Khodorkovsky, and possibly some Greenpeace activists. So that's going to be his signal to the rest of the world that he is a more liberal, more open ruler. But basically, as the members of the Pussy Riot band said upon their release, they are going to be really used as props in the propaganda effort that Putin is putting forward against the rest of the world. And that's what it's all about. It's all about propaganda. Okay,
Colonel Leighton, talk to us about the part of the world that the Sochi Olympics are going to be in. The Boston bombers, for example, the Tsarnaev brothers, came from that region. Chechnya, that's been a bubbling crisis for the Russians for the last 15 years. Is it possible that there's a security threat to the Sochi Olympics from these Muslim extremist groups in the region?
Absolutely, and it should concern Putin and his government, all until the run-up of those Olympics and through the course of those Olympics. Olympic venues, ever since 1972, and the Israeli victims there, the Israeli athletes that were attacked by the Black September Palestinian group, they are a key venue for terrorists, and they also basically bring out all of the anti-terrorist efforts that a government can bring to bear when they hold Olympics in a country. So Putin and his government are very aware that they need to do as much as they possibly can to protect the Olympics, but it's going to be a very, very tough effort for them just because the Chechen rebels and other separatist groups from the Caucasus region are very active in that area, and it's not that far for them to get to Sochi.
Let me ask you further afield with Putin and his position as a world leader. We've seen just in the last week he's made efforts with Ukraine to make sure that they do not turn to Europe, that they turn towards Russia. He's got a much larger role for Russia in the Middle East, Egypt, Syria. And to a certain extent, it looks like he's outsmarted the United States with relations with Iran as well. What are Putin's goals in all this, and where do you think it will lead him in the next few years?
Well, historically, Russia has always looked at trying to get as much access as they possibly can to the Mediterranean, and particularly to the eastern Mediterranean, because that gives them access from the Black Sea. And, of course, if they get the Ukraine, they once again have basically unfettered access to the Black Sea and the resources and the trade opportunities that presents. If they can work with Iran, with Turkey, with the states of the Middle East, that enhances Russian influence, allows the Russians to maintain a degree of power that they really haven't been able to project ever since the end of communism. And because of this, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make as much hay as possible, diplomatic hay as possible, by going in and trying to reestablish the influence that the czars before them, then the communists had, and now Putin wants to reestablish the same influence that we saw the Russians and the Soviet Union have during the Cold War. And that's his ultimate goal, is to reestablish that degree of influence and then leverage it to make Russia once again a great power in the eyes of the world.
Thank you very much for shedding some light on that and for your insight into the Russian situation, particularly into President Putin himself. Colonel Cedric Leighton, former Deputy Director of the National Security Agency, joining us from San Antonio, Texas. Thank you.
Thanks so much, KT.